Awesome. Thank you, Pastor Woodfin. Thank you for having us. I appreciate you guys all being here. I'm Stephanie. That's Yuki, as he already said. And we're going to just talk a little bit about purchasing real estate, making real estate dreams come true, and finding financial stability and even wealth through real estate. So whether you own a home now or want to own a home, actually let me ask a few questions. Anyone in the room own property? Excellent. Anyone in the room want to someday own real estate here in Hawaii? Okay. Anyone in the room want to learn how to take care of their pets? That class is after. Yuki, Tim, and I, Tim couldn't make it tonight, but we're the owners of Next Home All Islands. Really, the logos you see at the bottom are just a representation of education being important to us. We want to represent our clients with the best that we can offer them. And so it's important to us to take the time to go become specialists. It doesn't matter what they all are, but whether it's luxury home, distressed property, investors, military relocation, all sorts of things. It's important to us to be able to represent our clients with expertise across the board. And I appreciate that you all are here because education must be important to you too, because you're here to learn about something. So now enough about us. Let's talk about what we're here to accomplish today. Talking about real estate dreams in Hawaii. This might be someone's dream, beachfront living, oceanfront living. It's not everyone's dream. Maybe yours looks like this. In the mountains, up the mountain, in the valley, and something more tropical. Or maybe this condo style living, city living, maybe that's your dream. Regardless, we're here to talk about how learning about the market, different strategies to purchase real estate, and how to problem solve creatively can allow you to accomplish those dreams. At some point, we're all probably faced with the decision, sort of, do we buy, do we rent, or do we live with family? Now, I don't know your family, so I can't advise you on that part. But we do know a lot about real estate. So if you're thinking about, do I buy, do I rent, when's the right time to stop renting and move out of family's house and buy, there's lots to consider. So let's walk through a few considerations of owning real estate versus renting. If we do a little comparison here, so when you own real estate, you're building wealth. The expectation is that you own, and there's going to be equity gain in that property, and you're going to build wealth. When you rent real estate, you're building wealth too, for your landlord. So unfortunately, you're not building your own wealth. You are still helping someone make a mortgage payment and gain equity. It is for someone else, unfortunately. When you own real estate, your monthly payment usually is locked in. You're in a fixed interest rate, a fixed mortgage. You're locked in. You know what that payment's going to be for the term of that loan, unless you decide to make changes on that. When you rent, as any of us who have rented before, probably most of us, many of us in this room, you know that it's not locked in. It's not a guaranteed rate. Many landlords increase the rental rate about 3% a year. Or if you have that really nice landlord who hasn't increased it, then maybe several years down the road you get that 10% increase because they're trying to catch up. Right? So you know that rent, it's not going to stay fixed for 30 years. No one's going to do that, even the best landlords. When you own, you have flexibility. You have freedom to customize. You can get a permit to add onto the home. You can paint it. You can landscape how you want. You can have several pets. You guys are great. Thanks for laughing at my jokes. I'm not that funny, but you make me laugh. When you rent, maybe your landlord lets you make some minor changes, but for the benefit of him or her, really, you're improving their home. So maybe they'll let you paint it, maybe they'll let you do some landscaping, maybe not at all. But if you do, the benefit for you is temporary. For both owning and renting, you do need an initial outlay of cash. That's true for both. When you're buying, you need some sort of cash down payment in many scenarios, if not most. And closing costs need to be paid for. When you rent, application fees, security deposit, first month's rent. I would expect in most cases that's probably less than what you need to bring to the table when you're buying, but both need some cash outlay. And then really, when you own, you control your destiny. The future is yours to decide about. Do you want to move? Do you want to change locations? Do you want to sell? Do you want to have family move in with you? When you rent, that's your landlord's decision, unfortunately, right? They decide they want to sell, or they want to remodel, or they want family to move into the house, and they tell you it's time to go. So you don't have as much control over your destiny. So these are some of the things to think about when you're comparing, when is the time for me to buy, and do I want to buy? Is that the right decision for me? There's also a financial picture, comparing renting versus buying. So let's look at some realistic examples of a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home. Let's compare if we're going to be a tenant in that home. So let's say I'm going to rent that home, and Yuki lives down the street, and she purchased that home, or she's going to purchase that home. They're very similar, they're on the same street. So I might pay $3,500 a month in rent for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Yuki is going to purchase that home for $800,000, and her loan for an $800,000 loan is going to be about $5,300. That's at 7% interest rate. I want to be realistic as well. We're not doing fake numbers here. That's not helpful information. All right, we want to educate on what's real in your life. So at a 7% interest rate, Yuki's going to pay about $5,300. It's a lot more than what I'm paying right now to rent that same home. But over the term of living in this home, Yuki's payment isn't going to change. In the 30th year, I'm paying $8,200 a month, and that's using that 3% a year rental increase. Again, a landlord may not do it every year, but at some year they catch up, right? And on average, it's 3% a year. So in that 30th year, I'm paying $8,200 a month for that same home that Yuki purchased. In her 30th year, she's still making the same payment, unless maybe she refinanced because those rates went down. It might be better for her. But at the end of that 30th year, she's actually making no payments, and I still have to pay the rent. So, the total payments over the 30 years, who do you think paid more? Using just these numbers right up here. I had to pay all that, no, you can't pay all that interest. 7%, that's high. You shouldn't pay all that interest, that's a lot. $800,000 home. I paid almost $2 million to live in that home over 30 years. Yuki paid a little bit less. We both paid a lot. But she paid about 1.9 and I paid about $2 million. And at the end of that 30th year, Yuki has about $3.2 million in equity. I'm using there a 5% equity increase every year, so a value increase of the home 5% a year, because on Oahu, historically, that's our average. We'll get into a few slides later where we see that right now we're looking at like 3 to 4% happening over the last year, but some years we do 7 or 8%. So on average, on Oahu, we have 5% a year. So over those 30 years, Yuki has paid off her mortgage. She doesn't have to pay to live in the home anymore. And she has $3.2 million of equity. Unfortunately, I don't. So, it's not always the right time to buy. But in many scenarios, if not most, it's a good decision to buy at some point. To control what you want to do with your home. Give yourself the opportunity for financial stability, if not even wealth. So then it's about, when is the right time for me? Everyone's scenario is different. So understanding a bit about what's going on in the market, what's happening with the housing market around us, is a good starting point to know like when might be the right time to buy. So let's talk about what's happening in the market. More numbers in the board. I promise I won't stay like all academic and numbers and graphs the whole time, but bear with me for a few slides before I do. This most recent full month, October 2024, we're looking at all of Oahu compared to 1 year ago. This is the median home price. Median is similar to average. I'm not going to get into median, mode, average, mean. We don't need to talk about all that and bring us back to 7th grade math. But median is what most accurately represents kind of what an average looks like for home prices. So $750,000 is the median home price for single-family homes and condos on Oahu. This doesn't consider leasehold properties; those are separate. We'll go out. So compared to a year ago, that price has gone up a little over 4%. You heard me say a few minutes ago, on average in Oahu over the years, we go about 5%, and a little bit slower over the last couple of years. But so that's been about 4%. That's one thing to look at. We also want to understand more about what's happening in the market. So DOM is days on market, and sales is number of sales, number of transactions closing. So over the past year, things are staying on the market a little bit longer. 21 days is the median number right now. It's a 5% increase compared to the prior year. We've also had an increase in sales. So if I'm looking at this, this is telling me things are on the market longer, but they are moving. Transactions are still happening. Maybe just taking a little bit longer. Any thoughts on why things are sitting on the market these days? What are the real estate market experts mean?
Interest rates?
Yes, interest rates. It's one fabulous reason. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Interest rates. So interest rates have been in like 6-7% range for the last about 3 years now. 2 years, last 2 years. Before that, they were quite a bit lower. And so it's a little bit scary for people to see it in that 6-7%. It slowed things way down. But compared to last year, more homes are selling. So things aren't staying on the market longer, but it's still moving. The market's still moving. Now I'm going to break this out to condos versus single-family homes, because that's also a good factor to look at. We want to dive in further. And when you're ready to look into purchasing, you should dive in even further with someone like you or myself, or someone you trust, to look at the neighborhoods you're looking at, specific type of homes, specific locations. So it's important that you actually look at what's very specific to your scenario, and we could always help you do that. So I look at condos. The condo market stayed pretty flat. So most of the increase has been in single-family homes. Condo market, days on market has been longer. Number of sales is also pretty flat. Single-family days on market, gone down a little bit, but more homes selling. So we can see in this picture what this tells me, the single-family homes are moving more and having more of an increase in value. There's been a little bit going on with condos. There's kind of a reason for this. A lot of condos were underinsured, and so it was hard for them to be sold and get a new loan on them. And so they're kind of playing a catch-up game. They're having to increase their insurance policies. Insurance is a little more expensive. So that's what's been going on in the condo market that explains this. Things being a little bit more flat in price and taking longer to sell. That won't be forever. You know, the condos are kind of playing catch up with this. So in time, the condos will pick back up also. But right now, single family homes are moving more quickly and value increasing at a faster rate. So, but what does all this mean, right? 4% price increase, 3% in single family homes, flat in condos. Well, across the country, home values increase on average 3% a year. So even in this slightly slower, little depressed market, because of those higher interest rates and other factors, being an election year is usually a factor as well. Because of that, things are slower, but we're still doing better than the national average of 3%. Even in our slow times, here in Oahu, we're looking at 4%, 3% for single families, right? So, what this really means is Oahu is a great place to buy real estate. But let me confirm this with you, or for you. This is the last 20 years. Last 20 years, median sale price on Oahu. We have the condos and the single family homes back together again. So 20 years ago, I could have bought a property, $350,000, that is selling today for $750,000. That's more than a 100% increase. 350 to 700 would have been a 100% increase. So over 20 years, that's pretty darn good. And over the last 3 years, when we saw this interest rate hike, we still have done pretty good. Where the median sales price 3 years ago was $650,000, and now it's still that same $750,000. So for those who bought 3 years ago and looking to sell now, if you have to move or you want to upgrade, whatever it might be, they're probably walking away with some cash in pocket after closing costs. It's a $100,000 gain. It's not true in every scenario, right? These are median prices. But the story is, Oahu is insulated from some of the external factors, and Hawaii is insulated from some of the other factors that rest of the mainland experiences. Right? We're an island. What's the number one rule of real estate?
Location.
Yes, location. Yes. Yeah. So we're in paradise. Not always, but still, we're in paradise, and there's limited of paradise. There's limited land available. We also have several military bases on island. That has properties and transactions changing hands a couple times a year, just from those military bases and military folks PCSing every year. So those are some factors that help insulate us from some of the things that push other states or the mainland down more. So that's why on average we see 5% a year where the national average is 3%. That's why a slower, depressed market, we still see that 3 to 4% increase. So these folks who bought maybe 3 years ago and are selling now have experienced equity gain while they were maybe growing their families. Soil under their home is growing their wealth. And when you do this over and over again, this is where you can really create financial stability and wealth in real estate. So whether this means purchasing a home now and later either upgrading to a bigger home or a different location, or maybe buying additional properties, it's different for everyone's scenario. But finding the right time to purchase and taking advantage of that and buying does create the opportunity for that financial stability and wealth. So we've looked at what's happened in the market historically on Oahu, what's going on right now and in the last year. What do we think might happen? I don't know, right? I can't tell you for sure. But because we study the market, the expectations are that interest rates probably will come down over the next year or so. You hear a lot about the Fed dropped rates. Right? Last year, Fed dropped rates, or expected to drop rates 1 or 2 more times in the coming year. That doesn't directly impact mortgage rates. So just first of all, I want you to understand that. When you hear on the news, Fed's dropping rates, don't expect your mortgage rates are suddenly going to drop. There's not an immediate reaction right like that. When the Fed drops rates, that's more for short-term lending, and mortgages are long-term lending. So the impact is different. That being said, we do expect rates to come down. Not to those 2 and 3%, probably not those 4% either. When we experienced those a few years ago, it's because the economy was suffering. We don't want the economy to suffer. The 5, 6, even 7% interest rates are actually norm and representative of a stable economy. So, if the rates might drop to those 5, 6s, what might happen? Rates come down, what sort of reaction would you expect to see in the housing market when mortgage rates come down? Prices go up, more movement. Is that what I heard? Prices go up, more movement. Yeah, absolutely. So when rates come down, prices go up. So for those folks who are waiting to buy until rates come down, better be ready. Because when they come down, you want to move before the prices have a chance to react. Otherwise, if you're waiting and then those prices go up, maybe it's the same financial picture, really, from like a monthly payment standpoint. Rates are higher now, prices are here, and then we just do a little swap. It might be the same monthly financial picture. But you might have more competition in the market. Because when the rates come down, then folks are like, oh, I want to buy now. So then more competition comes into the market. I say that so that even if you're not sure if now's the time for you to buy, give yourself the opportunity to buy by just taking some steps. Meeting with a loan officer to see what it would take to get qualified. Meeting with a loan officer to see how much home you could qualify for now without making any changes. Meeting with a realtor to take a look at your market that you're interested in, your neighborhood, what's happening there. There's only 2 homes come on the market there in a year, and that's where you really want to live. Better be watching. Or do 2 come on a week in general there, and it's okay to just put yourself right. Right? You want to be prepared to know what's happening where you want to buy. So to set yourself up, sit down with some of those folks, but also learn about what are some of the strategies, creative, successful strategies that work for buyers in different markets. So right now, where rates are high, things are staying in the market a little bit longer. In general, we kind of call this a buyer's market. not a ton of buyers out there. And so buyers have a little more say in what they want from a seller. They can't control it all, they have a little more say. If we expect these rates to come down, more buyers are going to come in the market, it'll get a little more competitive. And so we want to think about what would be some competitive offer strategies. He loves this picture of the tug of war in front of the house. I had to tug of war her to actually get her to agree to put this picture on here. I saw your face when this slide came up. But if we're battling over a house, we're competing for a house, we want to have that stronger offer. So let's just talk for a minute about what makes an offer attractive to a seller. What are some strategies we can use? Some strong offer terms might be timelines. Maybe you say, I can do a real fast closing, we can do 30 days, and the seller loves that. Or maybe the seller says, hey, we need to stay in here through the holidays, maybe not close until January. Maybe that's the timeline. You're like, yeah, seller, I'll do that for you because I want you to like my offer. So there's some things with timelines. There's all sorts of timelines in a contract. And you can do things to make it more attractive with different timelines, and there are strategies to discuss with the realtor. Maybe you remove some conditions. Hey, you don't need to clean that home. That's okay. It's in good condition, or it's good enough for me, or we're going to come in and clean it. That might make your offer more attractive. There are other things you can remove from there too. Maybe there's some things you offer to pay for that the seller traditionally pays for, like a termite inspection. Traditionally, the seller pays for that, and maybe a buyer offers to pay for it to make your offer more attractive. Obviously, price, that's one thing that everyone knows can be more attractive to the seller. There's other clauses you could add in. Put in some money to cover a difference if it doesn't appraise the same as the purchase price, or offer to pay more than other buyers. There's different things that apply in different markets. And as a buyer, you don't need to know all these. You certainly don't need to do all of them, but it's just good to know about them. So when you sit down with a realtor when the time's right for you, you can say, what strategy should we consider? What kind of market is it? What would make my offer strong? If you just know to ask that, then you're putting it on your realtor to make sure that they're going to give you the information back that's working in this market and what might work for you. I mentioned paying for things often paid for by the seller. It's a good time to talk about a buyer's agent commission. Not because I'm a buyer's agent, I want to talk about how I get paid, but because there's been a lot of talk in the news, and maybe some of you heard on social media read or heard in the news, buyers have to pay their agents now. Sellers don't have to pay buyers anymore. This is all changing. Anyone heard anything like that? Yeah. So there has been a lot of press about this because 3 months ago there was a change. But all of that are just headlines, right? Clickbait. So let's inform you of what's really happening. So always, historically, commission rates and fees have been negotiable for buyers and sellers. What was common in the past is that a seller would agree with their agent how much commission their agent would get and how much commission they were going to pay the buyer's agent. The seller was deciding that before they even had a buyer walk through the door of their property, before it was even on the market. I think that buyer's agent is going to be worth X percent of my purchase price, or a certain amount of dollars. Before they even know if there's a buyer coming, they were deciding that with their agent. That was probably maybe not so fair to the seller, or maybe not such a good way to do things. But what was good was the seller and the agent sat down together before that property ever went on the market and talked about what is the value that agent brings. What am I doing for you? And what is that worth to you as a seller? And then they agreed upon some money exchange that was going to happen. It was very transparent. Buyers weren't afforded that same opportunity in the past. But instead now, what's required, because of some recent changes with the National Association of Realtors lawsuit settlement, it made things better for buyers. You get to sit down with your realtor before you walk through the door to see a home and have that transparent conversation. You get to ask me, what are you doing for me? we can agree upon what is that worth to you. And then we decide, is that something you want to pay? Or should we ask for the seller to pay it just as it has most often been in the past? Or do something in between? So the reason I bring this up now is because we talked about in the last slide how sometimes, to make an offer more attractive, you might offer to pay for something that the seller usually pays for. We have a client in our office right now who decided to make their offer more attractive. They were going to pay part of their buyer's agent commission and ask the seller to pay part of it. They weren't going to ask the seller to pay all of it, like it's historically been done. They wanted to do that to make their offer stand out. So just knowing about what's going on in the market, knowing questions to ask a realtor, you don't have to be the expert. But just having these ideas in your head, how can we be creative? How can I make my offer stand out? And related to this doesn't mean sellers no longer pay buyer's agent commission. It doesn't mean buyers have to pay it all now. It means you get the same opportunity that sellers always have to sit down with your agent and talk about what are you doing for me and what do I think that's worth. It offers you more transparency. It's a great change. So, those are some strategies to make an offer stand out. Sometimes, you might feel like we need to get creative for me to even think that I can buy this home or buy a home. Maybe the property needs some work, and you don't feel like you can move into a property that needs that amount of work. That's time to ask about, is a construction loan an option? Your loan officer should know about that. As realtors, we know that a construction loan is often an option. The VA loan, conventional loans, it's not an option in every case, but sometimes when purchasing a home, along with that mortgage, you can get a construction loan. And they give you a loan based on what the value of the home is going to be after it's fixed up. Contractors involved right at the beginning to get that loan. Sometimes it's about putting in a little bit of sweat equity right at the onset, or maybe even a little bit of your cash. I'll be honest with you, some buyers choose to take the risk, and it's worth it for them, to decide to do some work on a home to get it to meet appraiser standards, working hand in hand with the seller. That's not good in every situation. You have to have a good relationship between agents and buyer and seller, but it has worked. So just knowing of creative options is useful. Maybe you feel like, I don't know if I can qualify for a loan, or I don't know if I have enough for down payment. Having a co-borrower could help you qualify for a loan potentially. Asking for gift money. The first home I purchased, my parents gave me a few $1,000s. It helped put me over the edge to be able to qualify and close on that home. So gift money doesn't have to be, you do my whole down payment, but maybe you just need a little bit of something to help you be able to make that step. Down payment assistance programs. If you don't know about the Hawaii Homeownership Center, they are a great resource for education on purchasing homes, and they have some great programs for down payment loans, closing cost loans. The City and County of Honolulu also has a down payment assistance program. So again, you don't have to be the expert in all these, you just need to know to ask, hey, what down payment assistance programs are available? Let me see if I qualify. You just need to know to ask that. Sometimes seller financing works. Not all sellers are willing to hold a note or have a mortgage with you for the purchase. They want to sell and get their cash and go. But some do have the flexibility in their scenario. They're willing to have a mortgage for a period of time. Or loan assumptions. Anyone never heard of a loan assumption? Got a couple in the room. Usually they're with what types of loans when you hear about it? Usually with a VA loan. That's when we often hear about it. So loan assumption. So loan assumption means if I have a home and you're going to purchase my home and assume my loan, what happens is my mortgage, I'm not giving it to you. And you're assuming my mortgage. So if I have a home that has a $700,000 balance on my mortgage, I'm giving you that $700,000 balance, not giving it to you. You're assuming my $700,000 balance at whatever terms I have it at. Maybe there's 23 years left on it. Maybe I took out that loan at a 3.2% interest rate. And you're like, I want that deal. Well, so a loan assumption is you assume my loan. You assume it at those terms. What loans are assumable? You mentioned VA loans. All government loans have the potential to be assumed. We mostly know about veteran or VA loans because those are the most common government loans. But USDA and FHA are also government loans that can be assumed. So who can assume a loan? Anyone that meets the lender's standards. So if you qualify with the lender that currently holds that mortgage, that VA or FHA or USDA mortgage, you meet their standards for the assumption, you can assume that loan. It does get complicated in veteran scenarios. Can a non-veteran assume a veteran's loan? Yes. Most people think no. They can. The veteran that has the loan to begin with has to agree to it, and it can get complicated. And not all veterans are going to want to do that. It does change how they can make their next home purchase. But you don't need to be the expert. You need to know those details. You need to know to ask. Loan assumptions are a great opportunity in a market right now where interest rates are 7.5%, and some people bought these homes at 2 or 3% and need to leave the island for some reason, or you want to move to a smaller home, a bigger home, a different neighborhood, and their home isn't moving. Their home isn't moving on the market, selling. So loan assumptions are a good thing to ask your realtor. You look into some loan assumptions for me in this neighborhood. Any of these listings have FHA, USDA, and VA loans. We talk to the seller to see, we talk to the agent to see if the seller is willing to allow an assumption. So there's also another factor. Why does the loan balance matter? So if I had that $700,000 balance, I'm selling for maybe $900,000, there's that difference between my loan balance and what I'm selling it for. What does that mean? What do you do with that difference? If you have the cash, that's great, that's easy. You just put the cash in for the difference. Money in your pocket. Take over the loan, put in $200,000, purchase it for $900,000. Not everyone has that cash. So there are options. It won't work in every scenario, but home equity line of credit, a second mortgage, those are options that people are doing to close that gap. I just learned a couple days ago, right now, Income Federal Credit Union is offering home equity line of credits up to 100% of the value of the home. So if I'm looking to close that gap right now, that's probably the first place I'm calling. I'm not guaranteeing that they're going to give you a loan to close that gap every single time, but it's the first place I'm calling to find out if they'll do it for my buyer. So assumptions make sense when the interest rate has increased and you like that interest rate that they locked in a few years ago. Assumptions make sense when people have a flexible timeline. They do take longer. You're at the mercy of a bank, a lender that has a mortgage already in place. Now they need to take their time to just give that same mortgage to someone else, and they don't make a lot of money doing that. So they take time. Sometimes it's 45 days, sometimes it's 4 or 5 months. But having the right agent who understands that process, who's done it on both the buy and sell side, who knows how to just call the bank and ask the status over and over again, push it along, that helps. So if you need a quick 30-day, need to move in, or someone needs 30 days and they have to sell, it's probably not the best option. But again, getting creative, knowing the strategies to just ask what options are best for me in this situation. So your realtor can look into it with you. I need my glasses. Okay, so we've talked a lot about what's happening in the market. What can you do to purchase a home? Really, the goal is to give you information so you can create your own success story. And we want you to share your success stories. Because those sitting in the seats around you or those coming in to sit in the seats after you, not tonight, they need to hear your success stories for their own encouragement. So when you are having success purchasing a home, purchasing homes, share it. Let other people know about it. It's not bragging, it's just bringing others along with you. Bringing others along with you, purchasing a stepping stone. Your first home doesn't have to be your dream home or your next home. Huh?
I get it.
Why did I do that? I'm like caught off guard. Your next home doesn't have to be your dream home. But it needs to be a stepping stone, a starting place. Remember this slide? Right? So maybe we're here, or maybe we're here. It just needs to be a stepping stone. or as I like to call them, stepping homes. Right? So find that next home that's right for you now. Give yourself the opportunity for that financial stability to create wealth through real estate. Dream big. Dream big if you want to. Right? But those dreams don't turn into action if you don't take a step. And you're here tonight, so you are taking steps. That's great. But ask questions. Sit down with Yuki or I, schedule time, meet with a loan officer, go to open houses just to see what's going on in a neighborhood. Take those next steps for your next home.
Yeah.
And turn those dreams into addresses. And please, let us know how we can help, because that's really our goal. We want to help you all be able to accomplish this if this is a goal